The Kinahan Cartel is arguably the biggest criminal organization in Ireland, with international links that help them extend their reach globally. Is the dominance of this cartel down to Daniel Kinahan, or can their success be attributed to others in the group? Welcome back to Crime Chronicles. Stay tuned to find out who are the real key players in this evil organization. Recently, the US Treasury designated the Kinahan Cartel a transnational criminal organization. This means the Kinahans join the exclusive ranks of transnational criminal groups being directly targeted by the American government at its highest levels. Other groups on the list are Italy's Camorra, Mexico's Los Zetas, Japan's Yakuza, and Russia's Thieves-in-Law. You'd have to have been living under a rock not to have heard of at least one of those criminal groups. If there was a league table for international criminal organizations, the Kinahan Cartel, which started in Dublin in the 1990s, has quickly rocketed up near the top slot. Although Daniel Kinahan might seem to be the biggest name in the cartel and its most recognizable face, the real mastermind behind this criminal organization is Christopher Vincent Kinahan, best known as Christy. Christy is one of the world's most wanted criminal bosses, and the American government has a $5 million bounty on his head. Christy Kinahan's criminal career started in Dublin in the early 1970s. Early convictions were for run-of-the-mill petty crimes, such as housebreaking, car theft, burglary, handling stolen goods, and forgery. As the file of his crimes became larger and larger, many people in Ireland started to know his name, including the authorities. After a while, Christy began to think bigger and started increasing the size of his gang, while also moving his focus from smaller crimes to far bigger projects, such as international drug smuggling. In 1986, Christy was caught with heroin valued at £117,000 in Clontarf, Dublin. He was subsequently jailed for 6 years after being arrested for crimes related to the seizure of this heroin. In 1993, he was arrested again and charged with possession of stolen checks. He was released on bail on this charge. What a mistake. Christy took the opportunity to jump bail and fled to the UK mainland. In 1997, he surreptitiously returned to Ireland and was arrested at a family funeral in Dublin on the stolen check charges. This time the court saw sense and denied bail, and eventually jailed him for 4 years. It was during this time in prison that Christy elevated himself above other crime bosses. He used his incarceration time wisely and studied for 2 degrees whilst in prison. He was so serious about gaining knowledge that he refused early release in 2001 to complete a degree. That's dedication. While in prison, he also learned to speak both Spanish and Russian. After release, he moved to the continent where he is suspected of setting up drug routes into Western Europe for Mexican and Colombian cartels, as well as the Russian mafia. Those new language skills were paying off. Christy had formulated a master plan that he was now putting into motion. By moving to Spain, he was ideally placed to organize drug shipments into Europe and on into Ireland. He was also best placed to engage with other cartels globally, thereby increasing the scope and visibility of the Kinahan Cartel. The final, and perhaps the most important reason for leaving Ireland, was to ensure that he didn't get bogged down in feuds with other criminal groups. Christy Kinahan was focused on making vast amounts of money, and petty feuds got in the way of this goal. The Kinahan Cartel still had a presence in Dublin, and Christy knew that he had to appoint someone to take care of his Irish operations. And this person was Freddie Thompson. This man suddenly gained control of the leadership of the entire gang. In 2019, the Irish Times found out that the gang had a direct supply of narcotics from the south of Spain. And who was in the south of Spain? You guessed it, Christy Kinahan. During the initial years of the Kinahan's international operation, while Christy was supplying the drugs and Freddie Thompson leading the operations in Dublin, many other Irish cartels ceased to exist due to constant feuding. While they were too busy fighting, Christy Kinahan was building important sales routes and opening new markets. By 2019, Christy Kinahan and his family had established themselves as the leading players in the wholesale and distribution of narcotics in Europe. The Kinahan Cartel began attracting a lot of attention to itself in Dublin, so Freddie Thompson had to flee from Ireland to Spain. Once again, the cartel needed a new head of Irish operations, and that job was given to Liam Byrne. This man was so successful that the authorities began referring to them as the Byrne Organised Crime Group in Ireland. Still, regardless of his growing profile, he remained loyal to the Kinahans. 2010 saw the execution of Operation Shovel, an organised law enforcement attempt to arrest and charge senior Kinahan cartel members, as well as their associates. Both Christy and his son Daniel were arrested during Operation Shovel. Despite this, the authorities had to release both Christy and Daniel since there wasn't sufficient evidence to incriminate them. Law enforcement failure and embarrassment has been compounded over the years, as many of those arrested during Operation Shovel have managed to claim back bail money, as well as cash and other items seized in the raids. In the run-up to Operation Shovel, Europol calculated that by 2010, the Kinahans and their criminal network had earned them at least €1 billion. As time went on, Christy Kinahan began involving his sons, Daniel and Christy Kinahan Jr., in the family business. Daniel Kinahan founded Macklin's Gym and co-founded the MGM Boxing Promotional Group. MGM subsequently became MTK Global and has been associated with some of the world's leading boxers, including Tyson Fury. It took investigators 10 years to realize that Macklin's Gym Marbella, which was founded in 2012, was part of a money laundering scheme. Whatever Macklin's Gym and MTK Global were doing behind the scenes, we know one thing for sure. They were helping Daniel Kinahan clear up his name and become a popular name in the boxing industry. However, things soon began to spiral out of control. Freddie Thompson, whom we mentioned had to flee to Spain, aligned himself with Gary Hutch, son of Jerry the Monk Hutch. Thompson and Hutch became involved in Daniel's MGM boxing, while Hutch becomes Kinahan's right-hand man. However, disputes around money arise between Gary Hutch and Daniel Kinahan. Gary Hutch takes the big step of hiring a hitman to liquidate Daniel. Something went wrong. The assassin was misinformed, and instead of attacking Daniel, he attacked Jamie Moore. Moore was an ex-boxer who was training with Matthew Macklin. He was the guy who co-founded Gym Marbella in Spain with Daniel Kinahan. Moore was taken to hospital and would fully recover, but Gary now found himself in a horrible situation. He knew that the Kinahans would come after him, so he got in touch with his father, the monk. Knowing that the Kinahans would be out for blood, Jerry Hutch wanted to spare his son's life by offering the life of another Hutch family member in a punishment shooting. Even Gary did his fair share of negotiations, offering $200,000 to be paid to the Kinahan family so they would spare his life. All of those deals fell through, and Gary Hutch was found dead at 11:30 a.m. on September the 24th, 2015, in the Marbella neighborhood where he had been living for the past 8 years. Gary was chased by a gunman and shot 15 times in total. The Hutch-Kinahan feud was now brewing. Both sides added fuel to the fire with revenge attacks, assassination attempts, and murders. The Kinahans attempted to murder Gary Hutch, but he saw it coming and saved himself. Jerry Hutch is suspected of being behind an attempt on Daniel Kinahan's life at the Regency Hotel, an event that saw David Byrne lose his life. Christy Kinahan Sr. was no longer involved in this feud. This was a battle between Freddie Thompson, Liam Byrne, and Daniel on the one hand, and Jerry the Monk Hutch on the other. The Kinahans might have been more powerful, but the monk had more experience than the three of them. As you can see from these violent acts, Daniel was finally taking over the cartel, and assuming the mantle from his father. The feud and rivalry turned into a wipeout. From 2016 until 2019, 18 people died in a fierce rivalry. However, a disproportionate number of Hutch members have lost their lives. Of all the murders that followed, 10 of which happened in 1 year alone, Daniel Kinahan is suspected of having ordered 14 of them. Daniel Kinahan was determined to eradicate anyone related to the monk. Besides organizing assassinations and maintaining the feud, Daniel also moved the seat of the Kinahan Cartel from Spain to Dubai in the UAE. So why is this move significant, as well as a major problem for Ireland? Ireland has no extradition agreement with the UAE, meaning Daniel cannot be taken by Irish authorities. So, safely based in Dubai and with a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head, Daniel Kinahan continues to run one of the world's biggest drug cartels. A cartel originally started and masterminded by his father, Christy Kinahan Sr. That is one hell of a legacy. Thank you for joining us on Crime Chronicles today. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends.